What is it that truly draws a man into the depths of love? What secret force ignites that primal, unshakable desire that makes him want to run to a woman, not out of obligation or need, but from a place of profound attraction? The answer lies not in superficial charm, nor in fleeting beauty, but in something far deeper, something rooted in the very core of our psychological being: authenticity. In today's world, there is a pressure to perform, to be what others expect, especially in relationships. Women are told to look a certain way, act a certain way, and speak in ways that are pleasing and agreeable. But beneath all this external layering lies an essential truth. Men are drawn not to performance, but to genuine presence. When a woman connects with her true self, when she steps beyond the masks society imposes and shows her soul, she radiates a magnetic energy that resonates on a level beyond the conscious mind. Carl Jung once spoke about the process of individuation, the journey of becoming one's true self by integrating the hidden parts of the psyche. This journey toward wholeness is not just a personal endeavor, it is profoundly relational. When a woman embraces her own authenticity, she invites a man to encounter her real essence. This authenticity acts as a beacon, a deep call that awakens something within him that has been longing to be recognized and loved. You see, a man's psyche is structured in a way that he is constantly seeking a connection with what Jung called the anima, the inner feminine aspect of his soul. When a woman is authentic, she reflects back to him not only her own wholeness, but also invites him to awaken his own depth. This is why superficial charm or fleeting attractiveness often fails to create lasting love. Without authenticity, these qualities feel hollow, like a beautiful mask without a face behind it. Authentic feminine energy is not about being perfect or always agreeable. It is about being real, vulnerable, and deeply connected with one's inner world. When a woman allows herself to be seen, not just the polished exterior, but also the shadows and imperfections, she creates a space of emotional safety. This space is where love can truly flourish because it tells a man, "I am not afraid to be myself, and I invite you to be your true self as well." This invitation is profound. It speaks to a primal psychological need in every man to be accepted wholly, without pretense. And here lies the secret. Love is not about fixing or changing someone else. It is about creating a space where both partners can come into their full authenticity together. This is why many men find themselves inexplicably drawn to a woman who seems grounded, who laughs freely, who cries without shame, and who holds her own truth even when it is uncomfortable. These women carry an invisible force that pulls men in, not through strategy or manipulation, but through the pure power of being themselves. Moreover, authentic feminine energy embodies a deep connection with intuition and feeling. It is fluid, receptive, and alive. This contrasts sharply with the often rigid and goal-driven masculine energy, which values doing and achieving. When a woman is in touch with her authentic feelings and expresses them honestly, she awakens a complementary energy in the man, longing for connection that is both emotional and spiritual. This interplay of energies is not just about gender roles, but about fundamental psychological archetypes that exist within all of us. The authentic feminine energy calls forth the masculine energy's natural desire to protect, pursue, and cherish. It is as if the woman's genuine presence creates a dance where both partners feel alive, seen, and deeply understood. In this dance, a man does not feel the need to chase after illusions or fantasies. Instead, he is drawn to the reality of a woman who knows herself. This reality is far more captivating than any constructed image because it speaks to the soul. It tells the story of a woman who has walked through her own fears, embraced her complexities, and emerged whole. And this wholeness is contagious. When a woman is authentic, she not only attracts love, but also inspires growth in the man. He sees in her a reflection of the life he wants to live, a life where vulnerability is strength, where emotional depth is valued, and where connection transcends superficiality. So, what does this mean for you? It means that the secret to making a man come running is not in changing who you are to fit an ideal, but in uncovering and embracing the truth of your being. When you do this, you embody a powerful feminine energy that cannot be ignored. It is magnetic because it speaks to something eternal and essential in the human heart, the desire to love and be loved in return, not for a facade, but for one's true self. In embracing your authentic feminine energy, you become not only irresistible, but also profoundly free. Free from the chains of expectation and the burden of performance. Free to love and be loved in the purest sense. And when you walk in that freedom, watch how naturally men come running, not because you command them to, but because your authenticity calls to their souls in a way nothing else can. Love doesn't begin with fireworks. It doesn't begin in the grand gestures or in the perfect words. It begins quietly, often invisibly. It begins in the moments when someone feels deeply seen, not for what they do, but for who they are. For men, falling in love is often not a choice, but an inner awakening. And that awakening is triggered when a woman, through her emotional presence, speaks directly to what he doesn't even know he's hiding, his unhealed wounds. Every man carries wounds, deep, often silent burdens shaped by childhood, past relationships, failures, or even societal pressure. These are the places he rarely visits on his own. Jung called this the shadow, the unconscious, rejected parts of the self that are buried to preserve the ego's sense of control. These wounds are not obvious. In fact, men are often conditioned to hide them, to armor themselves with stoicism, success, or detachment. But these masks aren't who they really are. Underneath all of that, there is a little boy who once needed love and didn't receive it in the way he needed. Here's where the deeper mystery of love unfolds. A woman who carries emotional resonance, who speaks not to the man's achievements but to his essence, can pierce through the layers of the persona. She can reach the place he thought no one could ever see. And when she does this, not by analyzing him, but by simply being attuned to him, something powerful happens. He feels safe, not just comfortable, not just attracted, but truly safe. That safety isn't created by words or tactics. It comes from a presence. When a woman is grounded in her own emotional awareness, she becomes like a tuning fork, able to vibrate with another's unspoken truth. She senses when something is off, when a smile is hiding pain, when silence is filled with a story that hasn't been told. And without needing to fix it, she honors it. This is emotional resonance. It's not about offering solutions. It's about being the space where he can let the armor fall. You might think men fall in love with beauty, charm, intelligence. And yes, those things can attract. But what truly binds a man to a woman is this experience of being deeply seen in a way he's never experienced before. He may not be able to articulate it. He may say, "There's just something about her." That something is her ability to touch his soul where it was previously unreachable. And this is where the feminine holds immense power. Emotional depth is not weakness, it is magnetism. When a woman listens with her whole being, without rushing to respond or analyze, she opens a doorway to healing. She becomes a mirror, not of what the world demands from him, but of what he truly is underneath. Through her empathy, he begins to see himself more clearly. Through her softness, he finds the strength to open up. And through her presence, he learns that he is not alone. Many women wonder why they are attracting emotionally unavailable men. The truth is, most men are emotionally guarded, not because they lack feeling, but because they were never taught how to process or express it. When a woman leads with emotional depth, she can teach, not by instructing, but by embodying. She shows him what it feels like to be emotionally present, to name what is felt, to hold space for discomfort without fear. And when she does this with compassion, without judgment, it becomes an initiation for the man. He begins to let his guard down, not because he has to, but because he finally wants to. But it's important to say, this is not about becoming a therapist or fixing him. That's a trap. The feminine doesn't need to rescue. She only needs to be true to her nature. When you are connected to your own emotional truth, when you've done the work of facing your own wounds and shadows, you naturally develop the capacity to sense the pain in others. And from this place, you can respond not with control or panic, but with grace. This creates a new kind of intimacy, one that isn't based on roles or expectations, but on shared humanity. A woman who can hold a man in his emotional vulnerability becomes unforgettable. She becomes the one he returns to in his mind again and again, not because she stroked his ego, but because she reached his soul. This is why men often fall hardest for the woman who, in the smallest moment, looked him in the eye and said, "I see you." Not when he was succeeding, not when he was trying to impress, but when he was raw, uncertain, maybe even ashamed. And instead of turning away, she stayed. That kind of moment has the power to undo years of emotional isolation. It doesn't make her his savior. It makes her his mirror. Love, in this form, is not about two perfect people coming together. It's about two imperfect people choosing to be real with one another. When a man sees that he can be flawed, afraid, even broken in front of you and still be loved, not despite those things, but with them, he begins to fall, and he falls not into fantasy, but into truth. And that's where real love lives. So if you wonder how to make a man fall, not with tactics, but deeply, irrevocably, then become the space where his true self feels welcome. Speak not only to the man he shows to the world, but to the one he hides in silence. That's where love is born, and that's where it stays, because in the end, the heart doesn't fall for perfection. It falls for resonance. Let me know when you're ready for the next key point, and we'll keep building this layered, soul-driven message. It's easy to think that love is built by constantly being there, by always talking, always texting, always showing up. We're taught that if we want someone to stay interested, we must remain visible, consistent, available. But the psychology of love tells a different story, especially for men. There is something deeply powerful, almost alchemical, about space. Not emotional absence or detachment, but intentional space. Space that allows mystery to emerge. Space that allows desire to grow. Desire isn't created in the known, it's born in the unknown. Carl Jung understood that the psyche is drawn toward what it does not yet fully understand. The unknown, the mysterious, the symbolically rich. These are the things that stir our unconscious mind. For a man, falling in love doesn't always happen in your presence. Sometimes it happens in your absence, in the space between messages, in the quiet moments when he wonders about you, when your voice echoes in his mind after the conversation has ended. This is not about playing games or withholding affection to manipulate. It's about understanding how the male psyche navigates attraction. Men are often taught to pursue, to go after what they want. But in love, what makes him want to pursue you over time isn't how often you give yourself, but how deeply you connect. and then step back just enough for him to feel your value in your absence. You see, mystery isn't about confusion. It's about depth. When you allow space between interactions, you give him time to reflect, not just on you, but on himself in relation to you. He begins to notice how he feels about you when you're not around. He starts to remember your presence as something meaningful, not because it was constant, but because it was impactful. That emotional echo is where attraction deepens. Most women have been led to believe that to keep a man interested, you have to keep feeding the connection with constant attention. But what happens when you leave a bit of space, when you don't fill every gap with a text or a call? He begins to come toward you, not out of panic, but because his own inner curiosity is being stirred, and that curiosity leads him into emotional investment. Jung taught that we are drawn to the parts of ourselves that have yet to be integrated. In relationship, we are drawn to those who mirror back to us something we haven't yet understood, something we long to embody. When you hold your own mystery, when you live your life, follow your passions, spend time in solitude, nurture your inner world, you become not only a partner, but a symbol of wholeness. And symbols don't chase, they invite. Have you ever noticed how men can be deeply moved by a woman who seems calm in her own solitude? A woman who isn't trying to prove her worth, but who naturally reflects depth. That's because such a woman carries the energy of mystery. She's not hiding. She's just not rushing. She's allowing space, and in that space, the man is invited to lean forward, to reach out, to wonder. And that wondering is where his emotional involvement begins to take root. The more we give someone all of us at once, the less they have to reach. And reaching is crucial, not for ego, but for engagement. When a man reaches toward a woman, he is investing psychic energy into that bond. And investment, in psychological terms, is what creates emotional attachment. So when you leave room for a man to miss you, to think about you, to wonder where you are or what you're doing, you are not creating distance, you are creating tension. Not the kind that pushes away, but the kind that pulls inward. It's the same kind of tension that gives music its rhythm, that makes poetry come alive in the pauses between the words. Without space, there is no rhythm. Without mystery, there is no longing. Many women fear that space means loss, that if they don't remain in constant contact, he'll forget. But if a connection is real, space won't weaken it, it will deepen it, because desire isn't fueled by proximity, it's fueled by meaning, and meaning takes shape in the silence. In the space where he realizes that your presence brings something into his life that he doesn't want to lose. If you are always available, always present, always giving, you don't give him the gift of pursuit. And the pursuit isn't about ego, it's about his own internal process. A man needs to choose love in his own timing. He needs to feel the pull from inside, not the pressure from outside. When you allow space, you respect that process. You honor his journey, and you reclaim your own energy in the process. You stop trying to perform love and begin to embody it. You start living your life in alignment with your own soul. That alignment is what draws him in. Because now he's not just attracted to your appearance, your words, or your gestures. He's drawn to the mystery of your being. That mystery is not created by pretending to be distant or aloof. It's created by living a full inner life. A woman who values her own solitude, who finds joy in her passions, who reflects on her own emotional truths, she becomes magnetic. Because she doesn't demand attention, she invites resonance. She allows her life to be full, whether a man is present or not. And that fullness becomes irresistible. It's the quiet confidence, the space between the notes, the look in her eyes that says, "I know who I am, and I don't need to chase anything." That's the kind of energy that doesn't just attract a man, it awakens him. So if you want him to come running, don't run toward him. Stand still. Let him feel the absence of your voice, your smile, your presence. And let that absence stir something inside him. Let the space become the place where his heart begins to move toward you. Not because you demanded it, but because the silence whispered something deeper. That's the paradox of love. It grows stronger not just in closeness, but in the spaces in between. There's something profoundly misunderstood in the world of relationships, especially when it comes to what truly makes a man fall in love, not just temporarily, but in a way that transforms him. We're told to focus on connection, on compatibility, on how we communicate, but rarely do we hear this one essential truth. A man learns how to treat you by watching how you treat yourself. That's not theory. That's psychology. If you want to know the secret psychology of why a man falls in love, and not just feels attracted, but becomes devoted, you must understand this. He falls in love with how you value yourself. Your self-worth sets the tone for how he sees you. Not because you told him you're valuable, but because you live like you are. Most people enter relationships unconsciously trying to earn love. They bend, they shrink, they sacrifice beyond their limits, all in the hope that the other person will see their worth. But here's the paradox. The moment you start trying to prove your value, you've already forgotten it. And when you forget your value, the man will forget it too, not because he's cruel, but because you've stopped holding the mirror up for him to see it. Carl Jung spoke often about projection. We do not see people as they are, we see them through the lens of our own inner world. And here's where the dynamic of devotion begins. When a woman holds herself in high regard, not from ego, but from an authentic connection to her worth, she becomes a mirror that reflects possibility to a man. She shows him not what she expects from him, but what she expects for herself. That distinction is everything, because men are instinctively drawn to standards, not rules, not ultimatums, but standards. The woman who silently carries an inner certainty about what she will and will not accept never has to beg for love. Her boundaries speak louder than her words. Her energy communicates something very clear. I value myself deeply. If you want to be close to me, you must meet me at this level. And here's the deeper magic. When you hold that standard, the right man wants to rise to meet it. Why? Because your self-worth challenges him to become more conscious, to become more intentional. It awakens his masculine energy not through pressure, but through invitation. He doesn't feel manipulated. He feels called into integrity, called into alignment, called into love. When a woman is unsure of her value, she often gives too much, not from love, but from fear. She over-explains, over-accommodates, over-functions, hoping to be chosen, but the man doesn't fall for what she gives. He senses the anxiety beneath the giving, and no one falls in love with anxiety. He may take what she offers, but he doesn't attach emotionally. Why? Because she's not emotionally attached to herself. This is what's most often missed. A man's devotion is rooted in how he feels about himself when he is with you. If he feels that he is becoming a better version of himself in your presence, he will stay, he will commit, he will return. But if he feels like he is allowed to be unconscious, lazy, disrespectful, or avoidant, and there are no consequences, he will continue that behavior until the connection rots. So how do you inspire devotion? You become devoted to yourself first, and devotion is not vanity. It's not surface-level self-care. It's the deep inner work of asking yourself, what am I available for? What am I no longer tolerating? Where am I abandoning myself just to keep someone close? When a woman is anchored in self-worth, she doesn't chase, she doesn't collapse. She doesn't explain herself endlessly. Why? Because she trusts her energy. She knows that the right man will recognize her not because she shouted, but because she stood in quiet truth. Her confidence isn't about being loud, it's about being grounded. Men can feel this. They may not be able to name it, but they sense it. When a woman is not trying to earn love, she becomes magnetic, because there's something rare and deeply attractive about a person who knows they are enough, not in arrogance, but in certainty. That certainty becomes the foundation upon which respect, trust, and ultimately love is built. Have you ever seen a woman walk away from something that didn't serve her, and somehow her leaving made the man realize just how much he needed her? That's not a coincidence. That's the mirror of devotion in action. By choosing herself, she forced him to see what she was worth, and whether or not he was ready to rise to meet it. And this isn't about punishing men. It's about loving yourself enough to not settle. When you hold your value firmly, it teaches the man something vital. This woman will not be conquered, she must be honored, and that shift from conquest to reverence is the very threshold of love. There is a part of every man that longs to honor something sacred, that wants to rise, to provide, to cherish, not out of obligation, but because he sees something he does not want to lose. And when a woman carries herself with devotion to her own growth, her own peace, her own worth, she becomes that sacred presence. This is not manipulation, it's magnetism. When you choose yourself again and again, you teach him how to choose you. Not because you need him, but because you've shown him that you would rather be alone than be mishandled. And in that quiet power, he feels the call. Not every man will rise to meet it, but the one who is meant for you will. And when he does, it won't be from pressure, it will be from recognition. He'll recognize your worth because you never stopped reflecting it. That's how devotion begins. That's when a man stops running from love and starts running toward it. There's something ancient inside every man, something he rarely speaks about, something he may not even fully understand himself. It's the deep, instinctual longing not just to be admired or respected, but to be safe. Not safe in the sense of survival, but emotionally safe. And yet, few men are ever taught that this kind of safety exists, because from a very young age, most boys are told to be strong, to be stoic, to hide anything that looks like vulnerability. They grow into men who carry unspoken burdens, men who often walk through the world armored and unaware that beneath that armor there is a quiet, aching need. This is where the feminine comes in, not the performance of femininity, not appearance or charm, but true feminine energy, the kind that doesn't try to fix, control, or chase, the kind that doesn't panic when a man is silent or distant, the kind that stays rooted, warm, receptive, open, present, the kind that becomes a safe haven. When a man begins to fall in love, it often starts in a place he doesn't even notice. It starts in the presence of a woman who feels different, a woman who isn't trying to impress him, isn't trying to manage him, isn't trying to outthink him. She's just there, she's not reactive, she's responsive, she listens, not just with her ears, but with her entire energy. She doesn't interrupt his pauses. She doesn't fill his silences with her own anxiety. She lets the space be, and in that space, something happens. His nervous system starts to relax. He may not say it. He may not even know why he feels it. But deep in his body, he begins to associate her with peace, with breath, with calm, and that is rare. That is precious. Because most men don't realize how tense they've become until they find a woman in whose presence they can finally exhale. Feminine energy isn't weak, it's disarming. It's the energy that says, you don't have to prove anything to me, you don't have to perform here, you can just be. And that, for a man, is transformative. See, We often think men are looking for excitement, for stimulation, for beauty, and yes, all of those things can attract. But what makes him stay? What makes him bond on a soul level? Safety. Not the kind that comes from someone tolerating his wounds, but from someone understanding them without needing to solve them. Someone who sees the little boy inside the man and chooses to love him, not pity him. Feminine energy isn't about passivity. It's about emotional intelligence. It's about sensing, feeling, intuiting, and most importantly, holding. Holding space, holding presence, holding love without needing to constantly give it away in order to earn something back. There's a quiet power in that. When a woman lives from her feminine core, she becomes the invitation a man didn't even know he was waiting for. An invitation into his own heart, into his own truth, into a connection that doesn't feel like a transaction, but like a return. Men don't always articulate their emotional needs. Many of them have never had the language to do so. But what they feel is unmistakable. They feel the difference between a woman who is trying to get love and a woman who is love. A woman who embodies it, who doesn't chase, doesn't beg, doesn't push, but simply allows. Allows him to show up, allows him to step in, and then decides from a place of self-honoring whether he's someone she wants to let stay. That's the other piece. Feminine energy does not mean you become passive, permissive, or endlessly forgiving. No, it means you lead not with control, but with clarity. A woman in her feminine knows how to nurture without self-sacrificing. She knows how to be soft without being naive. She knows how to hold space for a man without losing herself in the process. And when a man meets that kind of woman, one who sees him without trying to fix him, one who holds him without losing her own center, he feels something he may never have felt before, home, and once he feels that, he begins to associate her with something sacred, something beyond attraction, something he doesn't want to lose, because the truth is, men don't stay for the loudest woman or the most impressive one. They stay for the one who brings them back to themselves. The one who doesn't compete with them or try to become them, but who balances them, complements them, softens the hard edges of their world. This is the great secret. Your feminine energy is not weakness. It's what allows a man to step into his own masculine in a healthy way. Because when he feels safe, he rises. He doesn't collapse. He doesn't hide. He doesn't numb. He becomes more intentional, more present, more giving. Because your energy called forth the man he forgot he could be. And that is how love begins to root itself. Not just in attraction, not just in compatibility, but in chemistry of energy, in the meeting of the masculine and feminine not as roles, but as forces, as rhythms. As sacred polarity, you become the safe place not by saving him, but by saving yourself, by returning to your own calm, your own breath, your own heart. And when you do that consistently, without fear, without performance, something in him awakens. Something primal, something pure, something real. That's when love becomes devotion. There's something every man remembers long after a relationship ends. Not the words that were spoken, not even the physical experiences, but how he felt in her presence. That's what lingers. That's what echoes in his heart. That's what either draws him back or sends him away. It's his emotional legacy of the connection. Because long after the facts are forgotten, feelings remain. You see, people fall in love for all kinds of reasons: attraction, timing, excitement. But they stay in love because of how they feel when they're with you. Not just in the good moments, but in the silent ones. The hard ones, the ones where masks come off. In those moments, the truth is revealed. Do I feel seen here? Do I feel stronger or smaller here? Do I feel safe, or am I performing? This is the invisible thread that ties together everything we've explored so far. The reason a man truly falls in love, deep, devoted love, is not because you checked every box, not because you never made mistakes, not because you were perfect. It's because, when he was with you, he felt something undeniably human. He felt more like himself, and more than that, he felt good about himself. That is the emotional legacy you leave with someone. Now, here's what most people miss. Emotional legacy isn't created by trying harder or doing more. It's created through emotional resonance. It's created in the micro moments. When you make space for silence instead of reacting in fear. When you hold eye contact and actually see him. When you respond with presence rather than performance. In these moments, you're not just being someone he likes. You're becoming someone his soul recognizes. Carl Jung said, "The meeting of two personalities is like the contact of two chemical substances. If there is any reaction, both are transformed." That transformation happens when one person becomes a mirror for the other's essence. And that mirror doesn't reflect judgment or control. It reflects acceptance. It reflects truth. It reflects possibility. So many women wonder, why did he drift away when things seemed perfect? And the answer is almost always hidden in the emotional field of the relationship. If he didn't feel safe, if he didn't feel seen, if he felt pressured to perform or be someone else, that's the legacy that stayed in his nervous system. Not because she was wrong or unworthy, but because the energy between them didn't support his deeper self. But when a woman creates a space where a man feels both challenged and cherished, where he feels invited into his power, not forced, where he feels like he's becoming a better man just by being near her, that emotional experience anchors in his psyche. And here's the deeper psychology. Men often don't fall in love with you directly. They fall in love with who they become around you, with how you make them feel about themselves, with how you hold space for their most raw, unfiltered emotions without shrinking or judging. That's rare, that's sacred, when a man feels good around you, not just amused, not just sexually satisfied, but truly whole. He starts to associate you with peace, with clarity, with purpose, and that association is what keeps him emotionally connected to you, even in your absence. That's why some people become unforgettable, because they didn't just give love, they gave feeling, and not just any feeling, the feeling of emotional alignment. It's like music. You may not remember every lyric of a song, but you never forget how it made you feel the first time you heard it. That's the emotional legacy you want to leave behind. Not tension, not uncertainty, but something that lives inside him long after the moment passes. Something that tells him, I felt real with her. So how do you create that kind of emotional experience? You show up with your own wholeness. You stop trying to be what you think he wants and instead become what is real. You laugh when you want to laugh. You cry without apologizing. You say no when your body tells you. You speak from your heart even when it trembles, and by doing that, you model authenticity. You teach him that it's safe to be human with you, and that's where love takes root, not in perfection, but in presence. The truth is, no man is waiting for the perfect woman. He's waiting for the woman who makes him feel like home, and home isn't a place, it's a frequency. It's a feeling of being met, and you become unforgettable. Not by what you give, but by how you make him feel about himself. If you leave him feeling more connected to his own heart, more grounded in his truth, more alive in his masculinity, more loved without being judged, he'll come running back, even if he doesn't understand why. That's the legacy of love that lasts. That's the kind of woman who doesn't chase anyone because she knows when a man feels something rare, he won't forget it, and he won't want to lose it.